Houston, Texas, summer 1953. At around 2:30 in the morning, 3 residents of a shared home sat on the porch to escape the stuffy house. Suddenly they claimed that it was like the whole yard was enveloped in a deep shadow, which then settled in the limbs of a nearby tree. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just another tinfoil hat. Welcome to my show. Today, we'll be discussing the fascinating case of the Batty Batwinged bother. At around 2:30 in the morning of June 18, 1953, 3 people sat on the front porch of the house that they shared in Houston, Texas. The trio included 23-year-old Hilda Walker, her husband Lloyd, and Judy Myers, the 14-year-old daughter of their landlady. The 3 had retreated to the porch to escape the stuffiness inside of the house due to the extremely hot summer weather. Now, the 3 of them were just sitting on the porch talking when suddenly they noticed that the whole yard seemed to be enveloped in a deep shadow. Hilda claimed that she first thought it was somehow a, quote, magnified reflection of a big moth caught in a streetlight. I'm assuming she meant magnified shadow. However, this shadow then seemed to kind of gather and bounce up into the limbs of a nearby tree. Now, most accounts say it was a pecan tree. I found one that said it was an oak, so that's the true mystery here. She pointed this bizarre thing out to her 2 companions. All 3 then saw what they all agreed looked like a Batman. No, not the Batman, just a Batman. To be precise, they claimed to see a humanoid figure that stood about 6.5 feet tall, wearing a skin-tight dark suit that one of the witnesses actually compared to a paratrooper uniform. That also had this large black cape or wings that Hilda claimed folded at the shoulders. Now, they all claimed that this being was balancing on a swaying limb and also was surrounded by this dim gray light. Now, there was also in the house a 71-year-old roomer who said that he too looked out the window and saw this bizarre being in the tree, but just decided to go back to bed. The papers claim that the trio sat paralyzed. Now, whether this is a figure of speech or not, unfortunately, I don't know, watching the figure, when suddenly a white flame and smoke rose from behind the being. An object that they all described as looking like a burning, flying paintbrush then moved across the sky. They actually used the term scooted, which is a little interesting. And simultaneously, as this was happening, the figure faded away. Now, Mrs. Vivian Myers, the landlady, said that she arrived home right as this bizarre burning paintbrush thing scooted across the sky. The group did actually call the police, who did come to investigate, but surprise, surprise, they did not find Batman. So this is a bizarre little case, and really one of the great classics of the winged humanoid variety. Personally, I think that one of the best aspects of this case is that you have 5 different witnesses coming from 3 separate viewpoints. You know, the trio who saw the whole event, the landlady who saw the end of it, the so-called flying paintbrush, and then of course the roomer who witnessed the, initial entity and just went back to bed. So often the discussion of these, encounters with the anomalous is whether are they, subjective, almost hallucinatory experiences to the witness, or objective occurrences that happen in reality. And here it really seems as though this extremely bizarre sounding event, something we might be tempted to say is some sort of immaterial or hallucinatory experience, was actually witnessed objectively by 3 different groups, and again from these 3 separate viewpoints and starting points in the encounter. Now, like a few cases that I've dealt with recently, this involves a kind of nebulous initial sighting. In this case, the shadow that encompassed the yard, which seems to then, settle or maybe coagulate is the better word, into a more hard and fast entity. I just did the episode on the Gallipolis Cloudy Creep, where a mother and son saw a cloud which then either transformed or accompanied a Bigfoot-like creature. I compared that one to the Nottingham anomaly, in which another Bigfoot-like creature sort of transformed out of this bizarre cloud. Now, it reminds me of the concept posed by Paul Devereaux in Earthlights, that of the proto-entity. This concept that an underlying kind of malleable energy source literally forms into images, much like Keel's concept of transmogrifications of energy. This consistent patterning across every different type of paranormal phenomena, of a more subtle or soft sighting kind of preceding an encounter with something much more defined, as Keel would say, a hard sighting, it's definitely intriguing, especially when you have so many of these cases where the nebulous, mist or cloud or shadow or whatever kind of gathers into an entity. Also, the response of the 71-year-old roomer after seeing this, winged 6.5 foot tall humanoid perched in the nearby pecan or oak tree to just go back to bed is quite bizarre and common across, again, every different type of paranormal occurrence. This notion of witnessing something so extra mundane and then simply going about your day or night, as the case may be, is something that has happened across many encounters I've researched, including a personal UFO encounter that my mom and one of my aunts had, recounted in the video The Ghost House UFO. It seems counterintuitive to witness something so bizarre and out of the ordinary as, say, a UFO or a 6 foot tall winged humanoid and think, nothing to see here, time to go to bed. Combined with the possible paralysis of the witnesses, again, this may have been a figure of speech from the papers, though it certainly would not be the first or the 101st time that witnesses to the anomalous have claimed paralysis. It's interesting to see these two different reactions to witnessing the same phenomenon. Combined with the diffuse shadow and the fact that it was this winged entity, this also reminds me of the infamous Van Meter visitor, the bizarre winged creature that terrorized the small town of Van Meter, Iowa at the turn of the last century. This too was said to be accompanied by a so-called stupefying mist. For more info on that, please check out the book The Van Meter Visitor by Chad Lewis, Kevin Lee Nelson, and Noah Voss. The fact that this encounter was also effectively ended by light phenomenon is another concept that I find of importance. This is one of those themes that I return to again and again, that of the prevalence of lights and light phenomena in paranormal occurrences. Here, it's really intriguing to note that it was actually darkness which began the encounter, that of the heavy shadow that enveloped the lawn, and then it culminated in this figure vanishing as a light went across the sky. Yet again, we have multiple angles of this encounter. In this case, the flying, glowing paintbrush and the Batman. In the Galapagos case, you had the Bigfoot in the cloud, and Cisco Grove, the mothership, and the humanoids, which act synchronously. And I think that this really points to evidence that when you're looking at these encounters that have multiple different angles, or multiple different players, if you will, simply I think that these are just various masks for one vague phenomenon. Finally, one of the goofiest angles of this case is just that, kind of goofy. Here you have this winged or caped 6.5 foot tall entity wearing boots and a skin-tight paratrooper outfit. Again, this is kind of almost a call out to, hey, this thing can fly, so here's something emblematic of human flight, perched in a tree like a bird. Again, another symbol of flight. I can't help but wonder if it's this sort of dream logic, is the anomaly trying to make sense of itself in a way that ends up being even more nonsensical. Well, if you enjoyed this episode on the Batty Batwinged Bother, please like, and if you're new to this field of crop circles, go ahead and subscribe to see what weirdness the future may have in store. Till then, you can keep up with me on my free blog at patreon.com/justanothertinfoilhat. For today, I am Zelia Edgar, signing off.
Doing.